The thing is though, it's like what happens with socialism is it inevitably it fails, and what happens is they realize they have to have a top to bottom society, which is how you end up with places like North Korea and the USSR under Stalin, because they become realists and they become nationalists.
I can't say.
Well, it's like Stalin originally like operated under the globalization thing, but it failed. So he turned to nationalism, and that's what kept the USSR afloat for a very long time. It's actually what's kept Juche,
No, I know, but
Korea
I have like a
around.
major fear of fucking like anything to do with communism. Just automatically repulses me, even if it's done some admirable things now and then, like like what you just brought
Well,
up, Stalin turned into nationalism. It automatically repulses me because communism is involved.
well, for them, it's more about survival, like regime survival, which is why they turn to it. Because if you want to have your regime survive, you push propaganda that makes it look favorable. And that's nationalism. But the actual nationalism is like chauvinist is like West is best. Patriotism is values, and nationalism is the idea of like your nation, your people. You have to encompass all of those.
I'm more. I would say I identify with white nationalism
The
a lot more
problem with
than.
white nationalism is that it ignores the subgroups and the subcultures within Europe, and it kind of just broadly makes a stroke saying that we're all the same European, which is fundamentally flawed because it's a universalist. It's like Nords shouldn't be mixing with Mediterraneans, and Slavs shouldn't be mixing with Nords.
I agree partially there. Like because I'm in my immediate vicinity, so I'm in the UK. So speaking of Germany, um,
Well,
maybe Poland, I see very little wrong with those kind of people mixing.
well, it's like even though I live in America, I'm 61% Anglo-Saxon. The rest of my ancestry is basically just mostly Germanic. It's like German, Scandinavian, Norwegian, Dutch,
I mean,
all
like
of those.
German,
Oh, it's a
Britain, the
melting
northern
pot after that then.
Britain, France,
I'm
they've all
basically
been
like a
mixing
melting pot
for
of like Germanic, different Germanic tribes.
a
But
melting pot
the
in terms of white Europeans anyway.
the
Like,
issue with America is it's never had an ethnicity and it's never had a culture. Like even with the Naturalization Act, when it talked about Europeans, it was very broad with every European group, including Jews, were allowed, which is my fundamental flaw with America, which is why I think America needs destroyed for us to get anywhere. Because it's a two-party dictatorship that you never win power in. And the only way to get power is to go around the system, which is you either opt out and balkanize or you revolutionize, which means to destroy.
I can't see that happening anytime soon without the aid of some sort of
Well,
tragedy or
that's
economic
why
collapse.
we're going for balkanization, because eventually when it does collapse, that's why we're enclaving.
You mean when secession starts in the United
Yeah,
States?
secession basically.
I have faith in white Americans to eventually come out on top when some sort of collapse happens, because obviously there is going to be a free for all if society breaks down
Well,
in America.
even
Blacks are not going to.
even the communists and the ANCAPs are being smart because what they're doing is like in Cascadias, they're buying land and they're basically opting out of society and going into their own communes is what they're doing, which is actually smart because when the collapse happens and the bubble like pops, it's going to be around probably 400 to 600 inflation. You won't be able to buy anything.
Wait, what are you guys arguing about again?
Yeah, I'm an American.
Oh,
Zolt, how long before this inflation bubble bursts do you believe?
It was supposed to happen several months ago. I've already talked about this before, but they believe it to happen anywhere from now till 2025. And it's in a bull market right now, and all it just needs to do is just crash, and the bubble will pop. Once
Mm,
Trump Gate came in, it turned into a bull market. So
will this be
even
probably
though
relegated?
Trump didn't cause it himself, just him getting elected
Is
kind
what
of
I'm trying to
excited.
ask is,
It
will this be
excited the
primarily
market.
relegated to America, or
It excited
will
the
it affect
market
Europe as
to
well?
where it's going to make it crash basically.
Primarily relegated to America, or do you think it'll affect Europe as a whole as well?
It's going to affect Europe too, because if our economy collapses, it's going to affect Europe too.
That'd be funny.
When Germany went into a depression, it affected all of Europe and America. So it's going to affect everybody because at this point, because of globalization, all the markets are tied to each other. When we collapse, China will collapse. Then you're gonna have all these European countries start collapsing. It's just
I
the
have my
way
own
it's going to
personal
go.
views on all of this, but you seem like a pretty well-read person, so it's quite interesting to gather your thoughts on what kind of political ideologies do you see coming out on top.
Well,
The
the
reminiscent of
ideologies that are starting to get really popular is like obviously there's communism, there's national Bolshevism, there's national socialism, fascism, there's a Hoppian type anarcho-capitalism.
So authoritarianism is on the rise,
Then
basically.
you also have monarchy starting to make a return. It's mostly what I see is there's a return to traditionalist ideologies or just authoritarianism in general.
yeah,
It seems like it's going towards authoritarianism, be it left or right, because liberal society has been this rebellion against order entirely, and that this seems to be the way the overtone window is going.
I want to talk about it on a social scale. I think the kind of people who adopt the ideologies such as fascism or socialism tend to be far more capable of taking what they want or pushing their and the left. The left at the moment, the communists, are pretty much pathetic, especially in the
Pretty
West.
much, yeah.
Well, it's because there's actually communists who admit that the main reason why they're having issues is because the new left, which are the neo-Marxists, have turned their back on the white working class, basically. Which there's actual communists that will admit this. Which those are the
No
ones
surprise.
A lot of people who identify.
those are the ones that you respect because they're actually they're
No,
they,
I don't. I don't respect any of them.
I do a little bit because they actually know where their ideology is rooted at instead of being a retard.
But
Well,
that
you
makes
can
them
be
a
even being a
much
retard.
more dangerous enemy.
Yeah, they are. It's like you should admire your enemies.
Yes,
Is
but you
that-
I
shouldn't
think
spend too
hating
much
is
time
far more
admiring
effective.
them as well.
Well, it's if you admire
Like it's like saying, "Wow, ICE is doing a great job at killing killing our people."
if you admire your enemy, it's not the same as like wanting to help them or work with them. It's if you're just admiring them because they're a worthy adversary, I guess you could say. It's kind of like the relationship that Caesar had with
I can agree
Hannibal.
with
Like
that.
they both admired each other. They were still mortal enemies.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I'll be respecting a lot of corpses then when the
Like
time comes.
I call myself a national socialist.
Got 'em.
I disagree with Hitler partly. I kind of take a clerical stance because I think that the society should be involved in religion.
Yeah, no
I
doubt.
think
The
religion
reason
has
why
been destroying societies for years now. I don't think religion should play a big part in like politics.
Correlation. You can draw
No.
part. You definitely a correlation between the degradation of society and the forsaking of religion. You can definitely
Yeah.
chart it. The forsaken religion, society has slowly suffered because of that.
Yeah.
You can pretty
I
much
mean,
notice it. I mean, and I'm not even particularly religious. I'm not particularly a pious man, but you can definitely notice that since the West has abandoned Christianity, that morals have just gone out the window completely.
It's because you lose any sort of core foundations.
Well,
True.
it's
They're
like
just
if
gone.
people still looked to Christianity as like an archetype, at least you would still have the foundations there. But they don't even do that. In modern society, they just outright reject it completely, which is the issue. Because when you have a framework that works, you just completely trash it, and you no longer have a foundation to work with. And you're trying to create a new foundation once you trash the old one. and what it ends up doing is it ends up creating a war between cultures, because then you have people still
Foundation
stick to the old, then you have people stick to the new, then it becomes a fight between traditionalists and progressives.
is already being laid, and at the moment it's looking like nihilism and diversity, which is just an impotent combination.
Yeah.
I would say that diversity and nihilism have made some sort of alliance. Because in order to justify diversity, you do have to have some sort of nihilistic aspect in your thinking.
Well, they've done studies and they've showed that people, like in multicultural areas, people are more unhappy. So I guess that's like another way, since people in their own areas
am
are
so
probably
mad
more
right now.
nihilistic. What did you
What
say?
I think it is? Oh, okay.
Sorry, I was asking what the commie guy said. He said something.
He's mad apparently about
What?
something.
Did you say something?
Oh, my game, it bugged out. And now I'm
Oh.
mad.
Oh, rip.
Never mind. Sorry, man. Continue.
Okay. What I think happened is because people lost the religious morals that they had, they automatically turned to nihilism, or they slipped into that unknowingly. And that just brings you down into this hole instead of finding another sort of meaning, instead of like,
That's why I think the science improving, it's kind of been a double-edged blade, because people are thinking that their actions are so insignificant that none of it really matters because of how big the universe is. That a lot of that plays into it.
well, that's true. It's just that if you go on thinking like that, it doesn't help
I'd
anyone.
say I'd very much disagree with that. I think even a very religious person will be interested to explore the universe. To be honest,
No,
it's just
Exactly.
that
I'm not claiming that that's the primary purpose, but I'm saying if you abandon religion and then you turn to nihilism, and then you
Bathwater, pretty much.
if you seek refuge in things like science as basically your holy book, you're gonna think that nothing is worth significant we are, especially then if you've already destroyed the Christian foundations of morals to live by. You're gonna think everything is pointless. You're not gonna care about anything beyond your own lifespan.
Hey,
A lot of
Horizon.
people,
And
yes.
Med, I tagged you guys to see a photo in the voice, so you probably will agree with.
This is like the
What
most
photo
true
is it?
thing.
Oh,
It-
it shows
Oh, I see it.
basically in the far right you have fascism, because it's based on natural law theory, which is basically where you would find feudalism and monarchy, and everybody else who isn't that is quote unquote left wing, which is how I look at it. Like
That is a good way to look at it.
even libertarians, even though they are like free, like they're economically to the right, but they're basically social, like very socially liberal, and for that reason, because they believe in a bottom up society without a hierarchy, that for that reason they're basically a leftist, because that goes against natural law theory.
Elite can do to halt or even reverse the financial bubble imploding on itself? Is there anything they can?
Well,
Your
like,
opinion.
I would think a way to get out of the bubble, like for instance, we need to stop borrowing money from other countries. We need to nationalize our bank, then back it by labor or the material goods that we produce.
I mean, the global elite, right? Running the show, for lack of a better word.
Like what I would do.
So, like, how can I explain? Interest for the bubble to burst, because that brings about mass civil unrest. Correct.
Well,
So
I've
you'd
been
think they'd be
called
doing everything in their power to make sure this doesn't happen, rather than
I've been called a conspiracy theorist for this, but Russia, they, like Angela Merkel, she takes funding from Russia. Then so did Hillary. Then a lot of these quote unquote modern right wing groups like TWP or Richard Spencer,
My game is
they
lagging.
they get support from people from the Kremlin, like Richard Spencer's wife worked for Alexander Dugin, and Alexander Dugin's a political advisor to Putin. What I think is that they're basically they're putting fake nationalist leaders into the spotlight so they have control